So recently there was this very interesting video on the Fifth Estate CBC where they talked about the Canada Revenue Agency and how in the last year or so it has lost close to $500 million. They didn't specify the exact number, but based on what some of the interviewees said, that is an estimate that came out, which is just like completely insane because people are paying taxes and the Canada Revenue Agency is being defrauded to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, which is crazy. Here is the video if you want to go and check it out. I do highly recommend watching it. I wanted to talk about some things that I learned through watching this video. A little bit spoilers, but I'm also not just going to sit here and react to the video, and I wanted to kind of give my own commentary over it. So that's what I'm going to do. So in the video, they talk about H&R Block became an authorized representative on this guy's account. He says he's never used H&R Block, which to me means that somehow, some way, somebody got a hold of his social insurance number and ID and then went to H&R Block and used his information in order to become an authorized representative, file a tax return, get it sent to their own bank account, and then basically defraud the guy, which is insane, first of all, that this happened. And it's insane to like how many people this is happening to. They'll just get like a message from the CRA that's like, hey, you owe us like $30,000, and if you don't pay it back, it'll start gaining interest. And, you know, if you're filing a small tax return, you probably don't have 30 grand sitting around to pay the CRA for somebody else's fun, basically. They also talked about some stuff that H&R Block was doing that was somewhat questionable that I thought we should talk about. And I also learned some things too from like background research about H&R Block that I was very surprised to find out how they do business. It had never occurred to me. I don't use like H&R Block to file my taxes. I don't use any of these things. I just go online and use an online tax prep software, free, optional, paid if you want. It's crazy to me that exists, that there is like a free version, which is really good. Like these softwares are really good. They can handle pretty complex stuff. Like they can't do corporation taxes, but if you're an individual or a sole proprietor or running your own business, software can handle that. So it's kind of insane to me that people are going to these places to get them to do it when it's important personal information. It should be these companies' responsibility to make sure something like this doesn't happen. I honestly don't know if they are to blame for this person's SIN number being used like that. It is a piece of information that you do have to give out to people, and that means that there is the possibility that somebody will find it someday. So you have to be extremely careful of like who you're giving out your SIN number to. Basically what happened, the fraudster went to an H&R Block franchise in Calgary and like filed a fraudulent return with them. What I learned through the video is that when you file a tax return with H&R Block, what they do is they set up a bank account for the tax return to go into and a prepaid debit card with your tax return on it. That sounds crazy to me as somebody who has never gone to one of these places, that you go in, you do your tax refund, and they put it on a fucking on a prepaid Visa or MasterCard. Are you kidding me? Like, this is screaming red flags immediately. I don't know about you, but to me, like, prepaid Visa, MasterCard is like the thing that you use to like launder money. Like, it's not, I don't understand how like a business is doing this. That was my initial reaction. I have learned a thing or two upon doing some research, but I still don't like it. Canada Revenue Agency, when you file your tax return, they're supposed to just give you a check from the CRA. Like, I don't want it to go through an intermediary, through another intermediary, which is exactly what's happening when you're filing a return with these guys. This is kind of the process that you go through, which is crazy to me when the process should be, let me go to the CRA, validate that all of my documents are okay, and say, yes, this is how much money I made this year. No, I do not qualify for any of these benefits. Yes, I do qualify for this one. File my return. It should take maybe 30 minutes for most people. But instead, we have this, and these guys continue to set up more and more steps in between this like tax filing thing. And the rabbit hole goes really deep with the lobbies and everything with these companies. This digital commerce bank, I dug into them a little bit because I wanted to see like what actually is this? Like, is this like a real thing? Am I crazy? And I learned that they have kind of these prepaid cards, and you can see that they have this thing called a white label. All this means is that they're like kind of I want to say pump and dump, but what they do is they like package together all of these like financial banking services, and it's like bank in a box for these tax prep services. And if you go to H&R Block's website, they have this page here that shows you this prepaid MasterCard, which is through, in some cases, this digital commerce bank. In other cases, it's through another bank called Berkeley, and they have an app that again is basically just cut and paste app. Great reviews on the App Store for 1.8 out of 5 stars. This is the other company that I was talking about, this Berkeley Payment Solutions. So both of them and Digital Commerce Bank or Digital Commerce Payments, they do basically the same thing. They're these online payment in a box platforms. But the part that kind of really annoyed me, why? Just why? Why do you need this to file your taxes? You really don't. But this post that I found on Reddit was kind of crazy. So it's from 2 years ago. This guy's saying he got an email saying that there was a DC bank account opened. It might be easier to process like their payment fee through this bank account digitally rather than having to like refund the person. And then I don't know, I honestly have no idea how it works paying these companies. You have to close the bank account that they opened in order to avoid fees. You have to do it in person. People are saying that DC Bank is skimming your GSTs, refunds, etc. So you have to make sure you close the account and reset your information with the CRA. So I read this post and I was like, okay, this is kind of weird that they're doing this. And then I find on the DC Bank website, they are advertising this for Liberty Tax, this personal deposit account. There's a $12 annual fee. So what happens if you're putting all of this together? This is a really long way of putting all of this together. You go to one of these tax filing prep companies. They go into your CRA account. They set up a new bank account specifically for your tax refund to go into. They give you a credit card with that tax refund on it. But now you have an account open with an annual fee on it. Maybe you immediately transfer the money out of the account because you're like, I don't really need this, but whatever, they gave it to me. In fact, I'm pretty much certain that they will not do a good job of explaining that there are fees on this account. 6 months, you're like, oh great, I got my like GST return installment payments that the government gives out. And there is a bank account deduction fee because for some absolutely crazy reason, these guys decided to open a bank account with fees for you. You're welcome. That you have to then close in person. Anyway, so learning about this really kind of like pissed me off. I know it's whatever, it's like $12 or $20, but it's the principle of the thing. There are some free alternatives for you if you are interested in getting your taxes done somewhere else, perfectly legal and free. There's this thing called the Community Volunteer Income Tax Program. It's just a bunch of volunteers. I was a volunteer in this a couple of years ago. A lot of people hadn't filed their returns in multiple years, and they actually got more money back than they had to pay, so it was a net positive for them. These are the criteria for that. The modest income is like really low. I think it's like $35,000 for an individual. This is the software that they use. It's called UFile. It is free. And then we got Simple Tax. Again, easy to use tax software. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this Tax File Empowerment of Canada lobby, which they did mention in the report. I have some issue with this because they forever want there to be an industry of tax filers, of people whose job it is to file taxes. And I quite frankly think that for most of society, this whole like filing your taxes thing is a waste of time. I know this because like I can go onto my CRA account and all of the forms for my employers, for my investment accounts, for everything gets automatically uploaded to the CRA. They literally already have the information. So it's a logical next step to think that they can tell you what you need to do to file your taxes. One of the members of the tax lobby in Canada is the American Coalition for Taxpayer Rights. We have kind of seen how tax preparation in America has worked out. Quite frankly, I don't know if I want an American lobby also lobbying in Canada. I really think it should be like free, easy, simple to do, or I have to deal with corporate taxes, so I'm gonna go actual accounting firm. But there's this in-between group that make tons and tons of money doing something that's relatively simple to do. And you know what? Maybe that's people's right to pay them if that's what they feel is the right thing to do. Final bits of news here. The Bank of Canada reduced the policy rate by 25 basis points. We're subject to more than usual uncertainty, which I think is a very fair assessment. It's not looking too good for the markets, for stocks. If you've been keeping up, you know what? Maybe it's time. We'll see how that goes. They also mentioned at the end that monetary policy cannot offset the impacts of the trade war, but that the Bank of Canada is committed to maintaining price stability for Canadians. So if there is higher inflation, they may end up actually increasing interest rates again. A lot of people were looking forward to rates coming down, but in order to keep inflation from going too crazy, they may have to reverse course again. Last and final thing I saw on Reddit, I think this is just kind of a sign of the times economically. People are feeling, desperate, so they end up turning to these types of scams, which are always prevalent, but do be careful if you're doing like a Facebook Marketplace sale or something. There have been a lot of reports about fake money. Usually they have this number, this serial number here. I'm not expecting you to memorize it, but if you look on this strip for the Canadian dollar bills, it'll say prop money. And last but not least, this was a funny comment I saw while perusing the Reddits, and with no context, I think it's just really funny. So yeah, that about does it for the video. Hopefully it was, interesting or informative in some way. File your taxes for free because you can. And also don't share your SIN number and stuff with these companies. Don't get them to open a bank account in your name, and also remove them from your CRA authorized candidate thingies. That's about it. Hopefully the economy will be okay. Yay, but I gotta go do some stuff. Bye.